Peace. In the name of Allah, I'm Aubrey Muhammad. I pray that everyone is well. Hempstead, family and friends, believers, welcome to my Facebook Live. They plan and Allah plan. We must protect our hoods. I hope everyone, Sunday as well, beautiful Sunday again on Long Island. I just give a few minutes for folks to come in. Check my audio here. It was a beautiful Sunday. Oh my God. Yeah. Just gonna check this. Okay. Everything sounds legit. Give a few minutes for folks to come in. A few minutes late, 4 minutes late. A quick recap from last week. What was that? Nothing special. It was a fast. I was fasting last week, and this week you may have to excuse me. You may see me drinking a lot more water this session because I'm on a fast. I'm burping out. A national fast. The Nation of Islam will do a 3-day fast. The 72 hours. I'm doing 48 because Friday, I had to do an overnight, from Thursday to overnight, do some paperwork for my moms. And please pray for my moms. Dorothy Miller, you know, a beautiful mother, and she's going through a trial with housing. And as you know, she's over at the Avalon in Westbury, and the owners are just a diabolical bunch. They're the deep state. They work with any agency that troublemaker and displace people and just, you know, make mischief, and they're a part of that. So please pray for her. And she's striving. You know, we're still doing paperwork for her for new housing to get her somewhere better anyway. You know, Allah always got a better way. Like the title of this lie is they plan, and Allah put his plan right on top of theirs. Allah is the best of planners, and the outcome is always determined by him. That's why we submit our will. You know, and to get closer to Allah, fast and pray, and tune into your heart. You got to reach, and it was a recap I had to do about 4 sessions ago. I spoke on the soul. I said the eyes were the windows of the soul. Everybody, I've heard that since I was a child. The eyes are the windows of the soul, and I added on to that, they are the mirrors of the spirit, because the soul is your connection to Allah. That is your direct connection to Allah. When you go to sleep and your deeds are worthy for you to wake back up, Allah wakes you up. Put breath back into your soul. Your last breath. You can see it. You can weigh it. And the spirit is in all of us. That's why the righteous live. That's why the enemy, he tries to kill your spirit. That's the spirit that lives in us and each other. And he tries to buy your soul, because your soul is personal. Connection right to Allah. It's the realm in which we submit our will and manifest the greatness. Yes. Okay, was it 7:07? Another minute. If you have any questions, please ask. Last week, that's right. I couldn't see. There was a whole bunch of comments, a lot of comments. And I couldn't see them on this iPad. You know, I have the iPad up here. And I'm observing, but I cannot see those comments, mainly until the session be almost over. It's over, then I see them every blue moon. You know, I hope that's a glitch I could get through. But if you have any comments, put them in the notice I put up the night before, and I gladly answer your questions and respect your comments, because I notice some people do comment a lot and I don't see them. I'll try it on the iPhone next time, maybe looking through maybe some with the iPad. But, you know, let's get into it. And they plan and Allah plan. We must protect our hoods. Behind me on that monitor, you see That's Minister Farrakhan and Jacob Javits Center. That's Stephanie Mills, our beautiful sister, singing the Black National Anthem. You know you do have a national anthem. Stephanie Mills is doing that. It's very low in the background because I just want to point out, when I watched it, it always reminds me, what are we doing in the community? Why do we allow others to come into the community and we don't take control of them? But we always have this servant mode. We're like a colony. Speaking about Hempstead, now, I was trained in Harlem, grew up in Hempstead, but this was in Manhattan. Minister Farrakhan toured, there's a lot of violence going on. It's just a murder, I believe, on Terrace and other parts of the city in particular, but on Terrace. It's always been violent over there. You know, and Minister Farrakhan toured the country with a solution for us. That's 1993. That's at the Jacob Javits. I was there. It was electrifying. We were outside. It was cold, and I think that's when Minister Hawk. That's right, Minister Hawk was the student minister in Queens at the Lebanon Lodge, and Brother Alfonso, may Allah be pleased with him, my brother from Wyandanch, was a student minister for Long Island. And both of them, they were on the line, you know, coaching the line, guiding the line to the seats. And when we went there, look how packed that was. They even had other sections where they had to watch Minister Farrakhan on the jumbo screen because we want organization. It was a Stop the Killing tour. This was the prelude. That's when Minister Conrad was the New York minister. Beautiful brother. He came out the ranks. And Conrad Tiller now went back by his government name as a Christian minister, but he came into the mosque recently, I believe. And Brother Student Minister Abdul Hafiz Muhammad is still amongst us. May Allah be pleased with him, along with his spirit, because that ain't no dead man. That's a live spirit that embody being pleasing to Allah by being living the purpose of the mission that Minister Farrakhan is coaching us and guiding us in and leading us on. And Brother Abdul Hafiz Muhammad embodies that. Back then he was Brother Kevin Muhammad, the Brooklyn minister. And this was 93. And it was rough in New York, in Harlem, Long Island, Terrace. Dang, Terrace was wild. From the 80s up to here. We was killing each other. And here's Minister Farrakhan making an introduction. And his entrance, I mean. And the minister called us. He was the voice of one crying in the wilderness. Look at all the men there. There's men and women and family. And he did the tours around the country to stop the killing, pleading with us, uniting with gangs, so-called gangs. They're black organizations, man. And he went city to city in some of the so-called worst places or the baddest neighborhoods, rallying us. Stop the killing, brothers. It's a bigger plan behind the scenes. He was pulling our, pulling our coat to the, what's going on behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, the United States government was planning for the murder of black men. In order to deal with what he was addressing, you have to deal with the source of pain, the source of our pain, and the source of violence in this country. It's a violent country. Why? Because it's ran by a violent people, a violent, murderous people. You got to deal with the source. It starts at the top. The bankers, these are wicked, plunderous people, oligarchs, plutocrats. These are greedy, wicked, murderous, conniving people. They run the country. It's always been like that. When the dregs out of Europe that were brought over here, they let the criminals out. They mocked Castro for doing that. When all the white Cubans wanted to leave because he brought about socialism, which was equality amongst most people in Cuba, and he addressed racism. And they got on the boat, the great boat, so-called boat lift, Mariana, I think it was called boat lift, something like that. And he threw all the damn Chris said, get out of here. We don't want you. That proves the value of what someone is doing. That means you value your people, you value yourself. You don't want the rebellious with you, riffraff, the greedy. The mob had all the casinos in Cuba, and Castro threw them out to bring about stability in Cuba, prosperity. Free school, free education, free medical care. Cuba loved their people because Castro had a good heart. That was from the top of the country. What's the top here? Conniving, diabolical. This country, CIA, has hindered and started trouble in every country on this planet. Countless wars. They send in their international jackals, international hitmen, economic hitmen. Those economic hitmen, if their plea for taking over a country's resources don't work, the economic hitman, go look up that book. I think it's Anthony Perkins. He was a CIA economic hitman, especially in Latin America. He says, let us take over your resources. When you take these loans and stuff, and say if that don't work, the CIA will send in counterinsurgencies, putting weapons in these countries. This happened dozens of countries. Ever since the CIA was formed, it was formed to start trouble. Troublemaker, agency formed to troublemaker, divide and conquer, and start trouble around the world. American agency is designed for that. The FBI was formed to combat and destroy black nationalism, black advancement, black independence, black power. J. Edgar Hoover, who did he target? Marcus Garvey. He's one of the first victims of that. And it was black stooges behind the scenes sabotaging his effort. A lot of us supported him. We loved him, Marcus Garvey. He is a true freedom fighter and a true leader for the black man and woman in the Western Hemisphere and the world. He loved all our people. Undermine the leaders of this nation. Ever since Caucasians came in the Western Hemisphere 500 years ago, they have murdered and raped millions of black and native people in the Western Hemisphere. Stole us from Africa, held us hostage on plantations and mills and other platforms of exploitation. Murdered and raped outright. He was uninhibited. He had the freedom. And what did he chose to do? To shape us, black people, because of our superstition. We're spiritual at our core. The essence of us is spiritual. Black original people in nature, our connection to the God, the Creator. In essence, some of us deviate through, we start worshiping, I said that before, we start worshiping images as idols. You can make things in an image come anyway. An image can be anything. But when you worship it, it becomes an idol. And that idolatry is when you lose your teacher. We were superstitious, so he took advantage of us. What did he do? He had the power in his hand. That is phenomenal. No other people did that. Something is wrong with this man. He is anti-black, anti-nature, anti-life. He is death and has glee and is the troublemaker, jolly murderer. He gets glee out of murder and violence. This is the man that rules this country, rules you, your teacher, your preachers, the one that taught you religion, that teaches you civics, that miseducates you. He has not atoned one bit for it. This is ruling the country. He loves violence. Mayhem. He's the daggone all-state man. Did you see that man? Always into something? Well, that's the rulers of this nation. That's just how they are. Whenever there's chaos and mayhem, you see Uncle Sam, the all-state man, not the brother doing the voiceover. whatever that commercial is. Some sort of car insurance commercial. And it's the trouble man. He just mischief and like a gremlin. Trouble everywhere, divide and conquer, and fomenting accidents, engineering accidents. Oh, I got you covered. Get my insurance. This is the rules. Until we address, and they're constantly behind the scenes planning, more violence, disunity, which we don't discuss. If you don't address the source of our pain, the source of violence in this country, you'll never solve the problem. We have to address that, have to be institutionalized to address violence from the top, the purpose of weapons. Don't you know the Second Amendment? People have been making that argument, oh, well, it's the right to have a gun. You don't need such a high-power gun, high caliber, high capacity magazines. But for hunting and self-defense, that's not what the Second Amendment is for. And there's self-defense, but it's a broader, it's to check a tyrannical government. You'll never argue about the anti-federalists. That's why it was written. It was anti-federalists stating that a government and its armed soldiers will create tyranny over the people. So it was to arm the people and a well-regulated militia to check the government, because a government that has armed soldiers will create tyranny over a defenseless people, which you have today. You have a tyrannical government that's not run by the people. America's not an oligarchy. I mean, it's not a democracy. America is not a democracy. America is a violent-ass oligarchy ran by oligarchs, plutocrats, and corporatists. It has a duopoly, and all three of those control the duopoly. The duopoly is the Democrat and Republican Party, two major parties that undermine all other third parties. The Green Party, the only party that's challenging them now. This is America. It's not a democracy. It's hypocritical to call it. Malcolm used to say, America's not a democracy, it's a hypocrisy. And oligarchs, plutocrats, bankers, corporatists control the two parties. And that's why the elections are not decided by popular vote, which is a democracy. What is it decided by? Electoral college. The electoral votes. Whoever get the most electorals. The Second Amendment is for the people. It says to have a well-regulated militia for the people. The people, we the people. To protect ourselves against a tyrannical government. And that was the anti-federalist argument. It wasn't about should you have a gun to go out hunting. What type of gun? How many rounds? How do you fight a government? You fight fire with fire. Equal fire to check them. And you literally have that now. That's why they're trying to disarm you. A lot of these mass shootings, those things are engineered. A lot of those people, you remember back in the 80s? I think it was the 70s also, but I clearly remember the 80s. All the postal workers, the snapping, all those mass shootings were at post offices. Did you know why? The post office is a government agency. A lot of ex-military will go and work in the post office. The military is behind social engineering and behavior modification of people, testing people, breaking people, studying people, analyzing people, on how to manipulate them. That Majestic 12, and other, they got other names, but it's mainly mind control program. But the CIA and the FBI, military people are heavy in that. Victims, a lot of them are victims. The the military. They break you in them barracks, in your living quarters. And they carry it over into corporations. A lot of military went into the post office. And it's them top people. They manipulate the workplace to make it, those microaggressions kill y'all in the workplace, man. You know, a corporation, and if you ain't aware, excuse me, fasting, 48-hour fast. I'll make up and do the 72 very soon, but I feel good. Well, I look all, I'm probably groggy because I didn't sleep. I did the overnight Thursday and had a lot of business to do Friday, so I didn't sleep. And that really gave me a headache. It shook me up, so I had to take an actual painkiller for that. I have painkillers for my ankle. My left ankle, yeah, it's like a sports injury. It's like a long-term sprain. It's not tendinosis, it's tendinitis. No, it's not tendinitis, it's tendinosis. Tendinitis is a sprain, tendinosis is a long-term. You kept getting sprains, you didn't let them heal. It's like the pitcher's shoulder or the tennis elbow. It's like a sports injury and stuff. And I feel good, you know, and I eat later. Because right now, I need the knowledge. Knowledge is food and information, and wisdom is using it. The CIA, FBI, they foment so much trouble, it's incredible. They entrap people. They entrap people like they can see you through these phones, all this technology. They can see everything you're doing. Even if you're in a behind wall, you don't have technology in it. Everything that can scan past walls. That can read your pulse behind a wall, equipment. They study you and see who's influential, who's what's called pivotal. They work on pivotal people, and then they work on people who have a certain profile. Go watch the movie of Chuck Barris. Remember the Gong Show? I think it was called Conspiracy of a Game Show Host or something like that. Confessions of a Game Show Host, something like that. It probably is. Confessions of a Game Show Host. It's about the story of Chuck Barris, the founder of the Gong Show and the dating game, and how on the side George Clooney played a CIA operative sending out assassins, and he was wondering, why did you chose me, you know? And he told him as he was dying from a self-inflicted wound, I think it was, they either shot him or he was killing himself, dripping blood into his pool. He told him, you know, why they chose him. It's not necessarily because you want to be a CIA person. It's people fit a profile. People have to be numb to the suffering of others. To be in the CIA, you have to be cold. They measure you. They see, do you torture pets? Do you do sneaky things and hide? Do you kill rodents? Do you like to kill? They look for murderers. These operatives that are numb to people suffering, because they have them doing these operations, and then if they ever wake up and come about their consciousness, their self-accusing spirit will work on them and wake them up and make them feel ashamed of what they did. It's a few people, well, a lot of, not a lot, some people don't have a self-accusing spirit. This is why they murder for glee. They hate nature. They strike out at natural things. The self-accusing spirit is your check. Every society should have a check, checks and balances. That's CIA and FBI domestically. And I say CIA and FBI, I say, oh, CIA is international and the FBI is domestic. And we understand that the FBI and the police locally will do things they do. But that CIA is there for when they want to eliminate somebody, an American citizen, when they want to murder them. That's when they bring in the CIA. That's the specialists. That's the ones that they study in the colleges and the military and in the jails. They study you in the jails, in prisons. They got a big pool there. They entrap you, and one of their main recruiting tools is involuntary. When they find the person may not want to do that dirty work, underhanded work, sneaky work, murdering people. Edward Snowden was like that. Edward Snowden became a whistleblower. Edward Snowden had a self-accused spirit. He said, man, this ain't right. Where do you think we get the revelation that there is a deep state? That came from Edward Snowden. Did you know that? He exposed a secret $50 billion budget for black ops, the deep state. Edward Snowden. I put it on some of my social media. They took down the first link. I had to put it back up again. Their plan is behind the scenes, engineering and fomenting most of the violence in America, all of the terrorist attacks. They study these people, especially children. Look at the Buffalo murderer, the terrorist that murdered 10 of our people. And we should just execute him outright. Take him from the police. Take him out of their custody. This is why we need to form our own militia, our own courts. Militia and courts is much more relevant to us. When you start cultivating yourself and doing things for yourself, you won't be stealing from each other, hating each other, murdering each other. Through cultivation. And you in ignorance, and you weak and broken, you strike out at those around you. They study people's tendencies. They have a profile for these people, the Manchurian candidate. That's people that they study, they manipulate them, they modify their behavior remotely. They have teams of these people. They have a $50 billion budget. And the overall thing is intense. You wouldn't believe it. It's like a country ran from underground cities in America. They got a small base over there at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. A brother that was doing construction there told a good brother of mine that when he went underground as a military contractor, a construction contractor, and that, remember the Batman with Christopher Nolan, him and Alfred went onto an underground elevator, the whole floor recessed underground. He said, well, when he went down there to do the work, he saw a whole team of mean-faced helicopters. And now they have drones, mean-faced drones with mean faces. Black helicopters with all black tinted windows. What are they for? All these apartments checking you. They're going to be patrolling apartments. They want you to rise up and get so violent you call on their own new world order from the people they manipulate. They're manipulating these people behind the scenes. It's wicked as hell. And the sad part is trying to explain this to people without tangible evidence. It's hard to get, you can show a pattern, you can study them through patterns like looking at deep space. You literally can't see a lot of things. You study the pattern of things and the behavior of things, how they affect other things around them, come to the conclusion that something else is happening at the source. That's the way the deep state is. They don't announce themselves. We the deep state. They put out little hints here and there. George Bush Sr., your daddy, said we need to bring about a new world order. That was in 1990, right before this. Look at all that violence in the black community. And that was Joe Biden was in it too. The crime bill. Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton. All of them were a part of that. That put drugs in our community. Put guns in untrained hands. Guns not the problem. You untrained, undisciplined. We like powerful missiles, black man. Come on. We are militant by nature. And that is driven to the exponentially powered in that we are the mighty tribe of Shabazz. that we're destined to go through this, to come out great. We're powerful, we're mighty, we're beautiful, grand people on top if you would be yourself. We're like powerful missiles, man, with misguided systems. You ever see a missile go misguided? What you got to do? Pow! You got to blow it out of the air. They got to self-destruct it. How is your behavior with guns and weapons for self-defense? And assaults. Do you assault your enemy oppressor? Do you defend yourself? The guns you have are extensions of your ignorance and your bickering, rooted in self-hatred for embracing the murderous, rapist founders of this country's system. It's the system itself. Did you see the Batman, the latest one, with it was white as hell. They had Gordon, black man, and the Catwoman, Lisa Bonet's, and daughter, Zoe. They had that DA, the Riddler, put a bomb around his neck. And the Batman, he came in, he was a detective. You know, Batman, man, was the master detective. People don't remember that. Batman was a super detective. And he came into the church where they were having a funeral, I think it was. And he was in that car, that Lincoln something, that drove in there, pow, and he came out and had that bomb around his neck. And the Batman was going through them riddles with him, showing him, coaching him through the riddles. And there was a point where he was saying, man, this is corrupt. He said, who did it? The Batman named some names, because the Batman wanted to know too, he wanted to know the rat. I believe it was the Catwoman's, Selina's father. And I don't think it was the Penguin. Yeah, not the Penguin. It was Zoe's father, that gangster, who was the rat. But he was coaching him through the answers to the riddle, or else he's going to blow your head off, man. And he said, yeah, I paid off this one. He said, how much was it a month? And he said, who? And then, come on, it goes deeper than that. And there was a point in his answers when he said, I'd rather die than hurting my family and everybody else around me. He said, it's deeper than all that. It's the system. That was so true. That was so true in that movie. He said, it's the system that's corrupt, man. It's the shadow government. It's the deep state. These are powerful people behind the scenes manipulate to create chaos in the society. All terrorist activities in America, all of them. The governor of Michigan, the attempt kidnapped her, were by agents. All of these terrorist acts. June 6th, maybe like an eighth of them. More an eighth of those ones that went in the Capitol. 1 out of 8 of them were stooges and agents and assets, deep state assets. That's why a lot of them getting off, getting little slaps on the wrist. Some of them. Did you know that the first World Trade Center bombing, which was like 2 years after this is the Jacob Javits Center. The World Trade Center is close to that. This is on near the water. Well, the World Trade is too. The World Trade first bombing, Google that, the first one in '95, was orchestrated by an Egyptian CIA, FBI asset, an agent. The bombing, the gathering of the men. They worked with the blind cleric in Jersey. This man was blind. That's a sign from Allah. You got agents around you. He was an FBI, an Egyptian, I think his name was Salam, Google it. He was an FBI, CIA asset that engineered the whole bombing. And then he told his handlers, He said, you know, these are live explosives. He said, oh, don't worry about it. They put it in a U-Haul truck. Ironically, and not coincidentally, the same explosive components and composite, the composite of those explosives, and that rental van were the same exact explosive, the composite, the makeup of those explosives, that fertilizer. And it was the exact same composition as the bombing of the Oklahoma Murray building with Timothy McVeigh. It was the same exact trucks, well, they had a van down in the basement of the World Trade One, and they tried to blow up that column and knock one World Trade tower into the other one and knock it down. And I think it was Yosef, he went out there by like J&R Music World, somewhere like that, and he was waiting outside to see when it happened. He said he went outside on the street and waited for it to happen. He was expecting one tower to implode and fall into the other tower. That was in '95. And the same type of explosive, the same exact composition was used by Timothy McVeigh, who was set up by a deep state asset that abandoned him when he left the Murray building. That agent that was with him, someone was with him in the car. When Timothy McVeigh was on his way back to that car, that agent took off one of the license plates and let Timothy said, you go ahead, I got another escape route. You never hear from him. Timothy McVeigh never gave him up. He was allegiant to a power that he did not understand, that he did not see. That Timothy McVeigh went like 70 miles an hour, and then 70 miles from there, an hour later, he's pulled over by the police. That's how they caught Timothy McVeigh. He was set up. He was entrapped. All of them are. And a lamb, I forgot his exact name, an Egyptian FBI, CIA asset, his handlers engineered the terrorist attack in 1995. I was in Harlem. This is downtown Jacob Javits. 2 years later, I was up on the Upper East Side in a Tunisian oil spot. And we heard it on the radio, 1010 Winds. The World Trade Center was bombed. An explosive, all that smoke, and they were evacuating them. I was in a spot in East Harlem when that happened. And that was orchestrated by asset. How come the American people, how come we don't bring this forward and say, explain this? Let's see more of what happened here, because it happens everywhere. And most people are quiet. They can see you coming and going right through these phones. All this technology. Edward Snowden proved that. Go watch the movie Snowden. Edward Snowden counseled them. He advised them. It's like a biography of him, biopic of Edward Snowden. There's a point where he could see everybody. He said, I can turn, when your phone is off, your laptop is off, your computer is off, your smart TV is off, any camera and microphone connected to Wi-Fi and the internet, anyone that have the capacity and I believe it have to be connected online. Any microphone and camera, Edward Snowden could hack into your phone when it's off. Turn on the camera in the microphone without the indicator light coming on and see and hear what's going on. Your laptop, any camera and microphone. Understand that, recognize that. Because people aren't as magical as they appear. They're not. They're being commandeered by the deep state. We need to confront this. Where's this violence coming from? The man is violent by nature. We have never reconciled. We don't discuss this. How Caucasians murdered and raped us by the millions for hundreds of years. and how we need to deal with this, how he murders the fun for glee. This needs to be addressed. This is coming from the top. The bottom emulate the top. The poor don't choose to be poor. The poor are poor because you trust the rich, and you violent because you trust this system that doesn't cultivate you, but it makes you. Woodrow Wilson even admitted it. He said we're going to have an education for one class, and we're going to have proper education for one class, the ruling superior class, and we're going to have an inferior education. And who do you think the inferior education was aimed at? You don't teach this to your children. This is why they're entrapped. Do you teach them not to pick up things that are left around them? They do it right in the court. My God. That's their playing field. Corporations, the military, and even the prisons. And the schools are the killing fields, where they take a needle, a spiritual and mental needle, and stick it in the brain of black child, in particular young black men, who are a natural threat to a Caucasian. And it's so bad, it's subconscious. It's fear of genetic annihilation. That is unique to him. This is what we need to be discussing. The root and at the root and core of violence in America. They love violence. All them guns ain't in everybody's hand anyway. Don't you know most of them guns is like 400 million guns, 330 million Americans? They often say, oh, you got more guns than people in America. No, it's not. It's the insecure, weak Caucasian male that has all that fear in him, that collects them guns. They will easily have 30 guns, thousands of rounds of ammunition. They could send hundreds of rounds at the range, hours at the range, smelling that gunpowder, the sulfur, that burning sulfur is symbolic of the hell he was born in, the cold, brutal, short life he developed in the caves and hillsides of Europe, that he has imposed on the world. And you're sitting up here wondering why you violent. Ain't no original people had that type of ferocity of violence, mass violence. Nobody did that. Where? The Indus Valley, the Nile Valley, all the troublemaking and confusion didn't come to Caucasians invaded. Look at the Native Americans. Some of us in the Western Hemisphere was doing sacrifices. Some. It was annually, like a handful of people. What happened when Cortez and Columbus and all these other wicked-ass Caucasians came in the Western Hemisphere? Wicked murderers, rapists, cold, numb, down to the core devils that love mischief and mayhem. What did they do with those ceremonies? They said, your God is angered. Montezuma was a fool. The Aztec king, he embraced Cortez as the god, the predicted one, the return of the feathered serpent. I can't pronounce the name. It's too long. It's Tetacola, something like that. That's the fiery serpent who gave them civilization and said, I will return by boat. And Montezuma, the most powerful man in the Western Hemisphere at the time. The Aztec, the Mayans, and the Olmec, these were powerful people. Powerful over civilizations, great pyramid buildings. That Europe was living in caves, backwards. He's an upside down man who's a magician. He casts a spell on you, man, that lasts generations. He casts a spell so hard, it will recycle on and carry itself for generations. Montezuma accepted this man as God, as Savior, and gave him whatever he wanted, all that gold, but not his brother. His brother dealt with him the way he should have been dealt with. But when the Aztecs and the Mayans were sacrificing, ripping out the heart, even sacrificing a person, they made him do about 1,000. And by the time the European river court was, and they act like, oh, this wasn't no long tradition, that came with the European. It fit his nature. It don't fit original people nature, who always balanced with nature. We respect nature. The land was sacred to us. We fought and squabbled with each other. You don't find the Olmecs doing that. Black native people. We had squabbles with each other. You don't find mass graves from back then until who came? You came and accelerated it. And they were wrong. Let me see if there's any questions or comments. Okay. My brother, Keith Phillips, a powerful message, my brother. He said, black and brown people, let's unite. We are stronger united than separate. That's right. And let's love each other, work together, be at peace with each other. I mean, hallelujah. I mean, my brother Keith. I mean, my brother. That's right. We got to tie our hearts back to each other. Our spirits are connected. Our souls go directly to Allah. We have to submit our will to do the will of Allah. And that's manifesting our purpose for being a divinely connected people. And there's a troublemaker on the earth. Now we under a murderer and a raper and an outright just berserker. Destroying the planet, raping the earth for resources, greedy. An enslaver, a colonizer, a destroyer. He had the power to make a man. No other people had that. On this planet, Caucasians in America had the power to make a man. Like you open up your Bible and it says, let us make man. He had that power. And what did he do? The so-called Africans and black, native, indigenous people, he took the superstitious amongst us and made us into his nigger and Negro. And that's a disgrace on the planet to this day. And many of us were woken up by who? The most recognized one was Marcus Garvey, coming amongst us with Pan-Africanism. He said, stop vying with yourselves, being colored. That's why we have all these different names. Originally, he called us just nigger. And then we went from colored, W.E. Du Bois in there, and so-called light-skinned blacks and miseducated blacks who think they're educated, call themselves colored. The National Advancement of Colored People, that organization has that name to this day. You in grave ignorance. Marcus Garvey says that calling himself colored. You're a Negro. The Negro was better. Negro, when he said Negro, he meant black. In regards to color, color meant mixed race, so-called mixed race and lighter skin, who were privileged, the talented 10th and privileged boule Negroes. Well, Marcus Garvey changed the language, changed our outlook, told us to have pride in ourselves, that we were a global black people. He said your blackness is not a curse, it's a blessing. We had believed that. You gotta deal with this, man. This is our history. This is what happened to us. This is what we are. When he made a nigger and a Negro, he robbed us of everything. Taught us to eat the wrong food. Eating out of pork barrel scraps. Bad health, short lives. Boisterousness. Thomas Sowell said that we took on the culture from British white people, poor white British people in America, immigrants from Britain, of the redneck cracker culture. And he said them whites from Europe in the South long lost that culture because they had opportunities to be white in America. But we as blacks kept on that redneck cracker culture. That's partially true. The making of a nigger Negroes before that, before we came into contact with poor white, we wasn't living amongst them in slavery. Go watch that movie Django Unchained. We were on plantations, slave row. Every Caucasian we came into contact with was either a raping slave master, a murdering slave master, a raping, torturing, murderer, overseer. And that cast of poor white trash that you call crackers and rednecks, they were like them crackers, you're right, over in the house, who would catch you, who would torture you. They were poor, and they were over in the shack, and they were just living life freely. That's them, that culture, we wasn't living amongst them. We were influenced by them overseers and the master. We wanted to be like master. That's where that Mackin come from. I'm a Mac daddy. Them crackers and rednecks wasn't Macs. The slave master was a Mac. We adopted him. We were trying to be like Massa. However, he taught us. They didn't teach us. They wouldn't let poor whites influence us. If you were not in a secret society, you couldn't own slaves because you might educate us. You might treat us well. Their whole spirit was to kill our spirit and destroy our soul, because he don't have no damn soul. To murder, torture, and rape. To hold us hostage on plantation for hundreds of years. This is the nature that we coming up in. We were broken. That was vicious, man. Hundreds of years. Not only did he teach us we were nothing but a nigga and a Negro. Go read the Willie Lynch letter. Some people debate whether Willie Lynch was an actual man down in the Caribbean, and it was a brother that came forth. Yeah, I wrote that. Minister Farrakhan recited the Willie Lynch letter at the Million Man March. This is where it began. To stop the killing tours. The next stop after that was the Armory in Harlem at 145th, I believe it was. 140th, I think, in Riverside. Beautiful. I was there too. And we wanted to change the community, man. The original Caucasian influence of us came from the overseers and mainly the masters. And what was that? Ignorance, man. Go look at Django Unchained. Look, Master Candy, Calvin Candy, says, you go on and play. To the bartender and that Sasha, no, the other woman who was a comfort woman. She was playing an airheaded woman, and she was with the Spanish guy. The fighter lost. He lost the fight to Fred, the Mandingo fighter. Luigi, I think, was the fighter's name. That Spanish man who actually played the Django character in the, I think, the 60s Western Django. There's a point where Calvin tells a black bartender and the escort comfort girl, y'all go out and play like children. They treated us like children, and we had to look up to him as our father. We didn't have families. We had to sneak and have families. It was rare to have families. It was very rare. And even if you were a so-called freedman, a freed person back then, your rights could be taken at any time. You didn't have your papers. They can entrap you easily. Remember that I didn't like the movie 12 Years a Slave, but I think it was something like that. Because at the end of that movie, the white man's the savior. He embraces the white man as his savior. So we copy the society we're in. Violent, misogynist, self-hating, Caucasian, racist slave master, colonizer. He's a misogynist, he's a murderer, a rapist. He has an inferiority complex, and he has a whole bunch of other subconscious complexes towards black people, black men in particular. That's the man you're dealing with. He don't talk about that. This is why this keeps occurring and we can't find a solution. You're dealing with a man that's in power operating from the subconscious mind. And you tell yourself subconsciously, I don't want to offend that. Let me not stir that up. You fear that. To this day, black people, we have so many taboos when it comes to dealing with Caucasian men. First of all, you call them white. Your concept is incorrect. So we came out of slavery, ignorant as hell. We were workers. We couldn't read and write. We built them all black towns. We were miseducated in the South. A Christian church came from the teachers came to the South for teaching us. They miseducated us. Then we came up into built them all black towns. We had guns. We wasn't shooting, killing each other then. We fought in World War I, some of us. Some of them soldiers came back. We wasn't doing drive-bys, stealing from each other. We had a little graft, but them black towns were prosperous. When we prosperous, we do right. When we teach ourselves, we do right. That's what we were doing. We had our own security. We had our own teachers. And we had our own services. And when you're living like that, you don't want nobody to mess that up. We got grand things in our house. Dignified, dressed well, got cars. Everybody wasn't on the top, but wasn't nobody suffering a lot. You didn't go look at them old pictures of Tulsa, T-Town, Black Wall Street. You don't see no homeless people on the street. The church took care of that. If you were struggling or suffering, then we got our families back together. We started big families again. So just don't let them paint us as violent by nature. We are violent by circumstance, and the circumstances is you trust a wicked, murderous, rapist, misogynist, self-hating man, and you reflect him. Francis Fanon brought that out years ago. So when you're under colonialism, the people colonized take on the characteristics of the oppressor. We start doing to ourselves what he have done to us. Don't you know that most rapists are fulfilling a cycle? Most rapists, children molested, especially children molested, raped, and being told by some ghoul, keep it secret, a family secret. Shh. And you take this with you to the grave, taking it out on everybody else subconsciously. A lot of this stuff is operating from the shadows. It's violence because we hate ourselves, because we've been taught by a cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, backwards caveman. You trust this man through his system. See, everything is indirect. This is why we get so outraged when things are done blatantly and directly. We get so outraged when we hear of a shooting, this violent act, because it became taboo to kill him. That was the biggest taboo there is, killing a Caucasian for his murderous, rapist, misogynist, wicked, anti-nature, anti-black, self-hating ways. That was the biggest taboo. To this day, you commit a crime against a black person, and a black person commit a crime against a black person, and that same black person commit that same crime against a Caucasian, you get more time for doing it to a Caucasian. It's always been like that. And you trust and rely on a man like this for justice. Your damn head need to be checked. You don't have sense. Your senses are shot because you still trust a man that's miseducating you. You are so proud of being miseducated. You vie for the certificates on the wall. But you don't have a cultivated mind and self, community value. So we don't value each other. Francis Fanon mentioned that. We take on the characteristics of our oppressor. The child who is molested and raped keeps that bottle up, will more than likely be depressed by that and negatively affected. And some will rape and molest other people and children. That's the law of nature. I remember I was reading That's right. I wasn't reading. I was watching a movie, Goodbye Uncle Tom. Papa Doc made that in Haiti. And it was some Italian filmmakers who made that movie. You should go watch it, especially the first part, because it is accurate. It accurately describes settings and things that happen. This white man over the slave ship looking down in the hole. We packed down there like sardines in the slave ship holes. The holes of the ships, of the slave ships, in our own feces, own defecation. We were fed slop. Rations on the slave ship for slaves was molasses and yams, the starchy, the nutrients in the molasses and the starchiness in the yams. And that was a concoction that they forced on us. They put corks in our behinds and our rectums so that we couldn't use the bathroom, so that they could save money feeding us. Slop already. Well, down there, the slaver on top of the deck looking down in there about how the smell was, he said, yeah, even in that, in their suffering, you know, because they raped men, women, and children. Right there on Goree Island, even in the interior of Africa. That started right. That was the first thing they did, destroy family, rape. This is our trauma of coming into contact with Caucasians. And down in the whole of that ship, he said, them black males are so horny, they humping each other. You know, when you ain't around a woman, you're gonna turn around to another man. When you have all that sexual energy in you, especially if you've been sexualized. This is why we are hypersexualized to this day in poor black neighborhoods, undeveloped black neighborhoods, uncultivated black neighborhoods, which is the bulk of us. It's only like a handful of places, and you don't, and many of you so-called upper scale blacks, you don't care nothing about our people in so-called poorer neighborhoods. They're uncultivated, and you've been miscultivated. That's why you don't give a damn. That racist, what's his name, Donald Sterling, he brought that out. He said black people, he said, you don't look out for each other. He said Jews do. A Jew will see a Jew suffering, and a Jew will help him up, and they do. The synagogue is set up like that. You could go join the synagogue if you're Jewish. It'll change your life. Same thing in the mosque, the Nation of Islam. You come into us, it's self-improvement. We want for our brothers and sisters what we want for ourselves. And we look out for each other. But what happened in the church? You selfish as hell. You just selfish. Most of them sermons today is individual wealth improvement. What's that? I forgot the term of it. You know, self-improvement, self-development, independent wealth. It's independent wealth. It's weak and it's not wealth. It's just collecting Federal Reserve notes. It's collecting money that you're not using. So we come from that violent background where we were hypersexualized and this is why we're hyper-violent. We practice so much violence. All these whippings we got. If you build up the tolerance in a child to where the child will only do things, and you cussing the child out, telling the children how black and ugly and bad they are, and then you reinforce them with a whip and violence, pow-yow, telling the child nothing for taking the magic marker, writing on the wall, the living room wall, and you whip the hell out of your child, taking your pain and redistributing it to the child, but not developing the child, cultivating the child. You never address your own pain. This is happening in our homes, especially with single women. single women who use verbally, command children and stuff, especially little boys. You try to make the boy more submissive to your verbal command. When that don't work, what you got to do? You got to whip the child to death. So many of you don't feel like doing that. That don't fit your nature system. So what do? You make him your little man, your little friend. So he will accept you. And you buy him things. You even talk about other women to him. And you give him this high tolerance of disrespect towards women. You do this because he look at you as a friend. You don't see you as you don't look for a companion to me. So now the next woman he meet is more of like a mama, because he never developed his manhood, never had manhood training from a man. This manhood training. This is Jacob Javits. This was the introduction to us going to the Armory in Harlem. I think it was a couple of months later. To what was the purpose of Jacob Javits in '93? To secure our communities, to patrol our communities, to take control of the community, to enhance our lives, to make it better, to fight drug addiction, joblessness, hopelessness, and to build families. So now we've been built up this tolerance. You're taking the marker, you wrote it on the wall. A little child takes a marker, writes on the wall, and you whip it. So now, the child is in school. And he sees the magic marker. You ain't around. You've created this tolerance to where he will do things under the penalty of whippings. So now, when the teacher tells him, and these teachers are white teachers shouldn't have any access to black children. And even black teachers who lack the knowledge of self. This is where we failed. Well, this teacher says, don't touch that magic marker. And he's built up a tolerance now, only where he will not take the magic marker and write on the wall. It will be forbidden to him under the penalty of being whipped, the hell whipped out of him with that belt, and given that cadence of self-hatred. This is where we learn hate. This is the cycle. Them whippings put deep engrams in you. When you verbally do something to somebody, and then you enforce it with brutality, and then it's a cadence to it, and you angry, all your pain, you taking it out of you, you putting it in them, you a devil of the grafted type. We need cultivation, getting back to families. Because when the only reason you cultivate anything, you want to do anything, is out of love. It's like planting a garden. You don't have no hatred. I hate vegetables. You ain't going to plant them. And if you do hate a vegetable, what do? You use it for something. Take it to target shooting. That's what the Caucasians do. Target shoot thus. And when the things blow up, watermelons and fruits and sodas, they giggle and it's fun. He has fun with guns. Gun ain't nothing if it ain't fun to him. When you cultivate something, that means you love it. You care because you take time to invest. And it's time in the cultivation, the growing. Well, that's our culture. What's missing from us? It's the things we reject. You've been rejecting Farrakhan since '93. Matter of fact, it was the 80s he started, after 87. Madison Square Garden, 85. That put a seed in me. I remember that. Power at last forever. I started selling power products. Well, one batch, I think. I started before when I was unemployed. got out of work release, wanted to change my life. I mean, that's the last time I saw Gene Grant. Yeah, Allah be pleased with Gene Grant. I forgot where we was at. I think I was on Jackson. And I saw Gene, and he was proud of me that I was doing stuff positive like that. Because the last time we saw each other before that was in Elmira. I was in Elmira prison, and Gene, I looked up and said, "Oh, Gene," and he was outside on the walkway. He said, "Yeah, all." Gene Grant, and you know, cultivating the program is with the knowledge. This is coming into part 3. We have a plan. We have a program. We have a solution. The knowledge yourself. The loving yourself. You don't see Nation of Islam Muslims doing drive-bys and killing each other. Matter of fact, the conflict with Malcolm X was the CIA and the FBI. That was the CIA and the FBI instigating behind the scenes. You seen the movie Judas and the Black Messiah? The story of Fred Hampton? Some of them agents around Malcolm, Gene Roberts, and there's a few others, a whole bunch of. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, "How can we progress when my ranks are honeycombed with agents?" You know what a honeycomb looks like. He knew. That's the difference between Master Fard Muhammad, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Minister Farrakhan, and Malcolm X. Malcolm couldn't see his Judases. They can. They can see their Judases. Minister Farrakhan said, "They travel with me." Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad saw them a million miles away, every last one. And he would just smile all the way through, knowing the fire that they're making for themselves. We taught to love ourselves, to love, respect, and protect the black woman, and to see our brothers as ourselves, and wanting for our brothers what we want for ourselves. That's the spirit. You got to connect your soul, though. You got to be rooted in the knowledge yourself. Original black people. We are God. That's the essence. That is your greatness. We re-emerged in the Nile Valley, in the Indus Valley, in West Africa. We went over there 50,000 years ago. We had natural, divine, connected people. We connected to the Creator. We represent Him. This is why Caucasians have a Chronos complex. They can't take authority from black people because we reflect the God. He see God in us, and he hate God. He don't like the deal he was dealt on this planet. He doesn't like it at all. And he's such a magician, he's used his media to make you admire him and hate yourself. The very thing you are, you hate because you trust and you follow. Caveman. He despises his existence. It's all in his ancient letters. Life is cold, short, and brutish. Be Machiavelli. The strong survive. Well, the strong survive is true. Survival is the essence, the core of our being. Survival. Everything survives except a broken nigga and Negro. We rely on our enemy and oppressor. So you don't have the knowledge yourself, you're not rooted. You see a nigga and a Negro as nothing. It's been beat into you. We have been miscultivated into nigga Negro culture. And the only nigga and Negro is the white man, nigga and Negro. We got to build a restoration resource center in Hempstead. I was over there on terrorists in the 80s. We were wild as hell. Shootings, murders. Nothing has stopped. Because we never addressed the problem, connecting our minds to our bodies and souls. We never have, to this day right now, you won't go on social media. You can't go to Village Hall. That corrupt board wants things continuing as it is. The corrupt school board wants things to continue as it is. As a matter of fact, they want you to do it passively, and they want you to be miseducated efficiently. We're going to miseducate you, but we need to do it efficiently. We need more of you. 80% of Nassau County Jail population is Hempstead Public School systems. Students, Hempstead Public School students. I know I'm an alumni of that system. It has failed. It's beautiful for white supremacy, which many of you want a part. This is your fault. This is your tragedy. Your selfishness. Your individualism. Your personal achievement. They go into churches now teaching personal achievement. This collective community value. This is churches in Hempstead selling out this community, gentrifying it. These are the same planners planning all this violence, terrorists, and all this division, gentrifying us, displacing us, devitalize us, all type of negative things they do to us to keep us a permanent underclass, to keep us nomadic, weak, disunified. Our clergy in Hempstead are front and center with this. It's the same type of clergy that betrayed Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and helped in the assassination of him at the Lorraine Hotel. They betrayed him. Judas and the Black Messiah. You ain't looking for a Messiah. You're looking to capitalize off of your certificate on the wall. You're looking to collect money, collect Federal Reserve notes. That's what you're looking forward to. Not the planners. The Caucasian planners that rule this nation and shape it are looking for the Black Messiah to destroy him. And you have the man in front of you, Minister Farrakhan, you have rejected. Mainly. They have mainly rejected. Have we followed his instructions? Have we followed his leadership, his guidance, his coaching? Most of our issues will be solved. He solved the drug program and projects. Brothers didn't go in there with guns, militarized. Let's knock down the place. Let's get rid of the problem. We went in there to sacrifice. As a sacrifice. And with love. See, when your soul is connected, that's love. And when you see our brothers and sisters, the brothers mainly, selling drugs and stuff, we offer them an alternative. Come on into the nation, brother. Come get your training. It's the first thing you do. That's what he's talking about at the Armory. After this, at the Armory, we went in. He said, I'm going to train you how to sell products. We get the brothers, and we start training them. Manhood training. You reject it. You don't call for solutions. You love crying because you're an abandoned child. You're abandoned by a wicked, murderous, misogynist, rapist, self-hating Caucasian male who conquered us, robbed us of everything. And you're taking on his characteristics. Frantz Fanon said, when a man, the men in the army are conquered, black men are conquered by Caucasian males, raped and effeminized. Those black males who don't stand up to become militant, to fight the Caucasian males back, to end the oppression, to murder them, and kill the oppressor, to stop it, to stop the oppression. Men who don't do that, black men, you become weak. You hold your head down. Your subconscious is working on you. Your soul is tearing you apart. saying you need to be a man. You ain't going to be a man under a conqueror. So what do? You take it out on those around you. You take your pain that's been ingrained into us through them whippings, through the humiliation of white supremacy, of another man dominating you, and you don't fight him. You take it out on the weak around you, those who are closest around, because they remind you of what you should be doing. Our women disappointing us, man. We supposed to be coming together, brothers, for cultural cohesion, economic development, civic development, educational excellence, and the militancy to back it up. That is our aim and purpose. 5 points. Since we don't do it, nature itself works on us. She don't respect us. In that power, we create jobs for our women, where we don't humiliate them, objectify them, make them lose their inhibitions. But we provide a quality that's rooted in our culture of God, original black God. That's your culture. Islam is the nature we were created in. Allah re-emerged us in the Nile Valley, and we built them pyramids a long time ago to balance the earth. All the pyramids around the planet we built to balance the earth, like a weight on a wheel. When you balance a tire, what you do, you take the lead weight and you balance it. So now, out of our imbalance, our refusal to confront our oppressor in open, mainly subtle enemy. He wished he could be open outright, but in these coming days, who knows? If Joe Biden his medication stop working, and he reaches the point where his mental capacity, his mental facilities have diminished, and he falls out from that presidency, and Kamala Harris becomes president, you can rest assured you're going to see why the Second Amendment was written. The Caucasians not having that. That is going to stoke revolution. They will not take a foreign-born, she's not a black American, a foreign-born woman that they will consider blackish. They will not go for it. This is why they're trying to take all the guns from everybody. The guns is not the problem. It's the cultivation. Children who are trained in firearms, they don't have these out. They don't commit all this violence and stuff. It's when children hide, have secret fire, when they hide and they covet their firearms, and it becomes an awing power to them. They feel empowered with it in their hand. That child, CBS did a study years ago where they took a real disabled gun, a revolver, and put it in with some toy guns in a toy chest. And they went to a daycare center, and they sent the adults out, and it was just the children in there, and the children were told, don't go near those toys or something. After about 40 minutes, after a while, what does the child do? He's going to go over to the toy chest. Going through the toys, and they found a fake gun. Oh, wow. Then that one boy found the disabled revolver. It was a heavy revolver. And that little boy looked at it, he said, ooh. And then eventually, he took that gun, and he aimed it at the other child. Pulled the trigger. Pow! You heard the hammer cock. The hammer fly. The firing pin. Hit nothing because it was unloaded. It was disabled. Children who see that gun has the power. That's why you see them in the videos. Go look at the children that are trained in firearms. They got the safe finger. They got the gun on safety. Most of the time, they check to make sure it's unloaded. If they aren't shooting, make sure it's not loaded. They have it safely, and they pointed down at a safe object, in a safe place where nothing will be shot. And go look at uncultivated, young, mainly black men, teenagers with a gun, and point it right at the camera, trying to evoke fear in you, intimidation, because we're not trained and cultivated to face our oppressor. We don't have marching orders. We don't have instructions. We got, nigga, do what you want to do with your gun. And that's the first thing he do, look at another so-called Negro. A nigga in the hood, that's the source that he taking his pain out on. He not confronting the source of his pain, white supremacy, a murderous, rapist, misogynist, exploiter, and enslaver. You're not confronting him. Who you take down? Those around you, who remind you of yourself. That is your soul working on you. And this is where them shootings come from. Because we as men, we have failed to heed the call. 93, Farrakhan. Come on, brother, let's unite. Let's take charge of our communities. Let's cultivate it, develop things, do something for ourselves, protect our woman, provide a way for our wife and family. Let's start building families. You have to be trained for family. This is why we got all these perversities. We got all the low or high divorce rate and low marriage rate. People are marrying now because we haven't been cultivated. We keep relying on the system. I was talking to a sister Thurn, posted something on my page earlier about the truancy in school, and I put a comment under the section of quoting Kwanzaa Kunjufu. Back in the 80s, he was talking about this. How irrelevant the system is. Them schools is anti-black. They teach you to hate yourself. You've been miseducated, so you think it's something. You will want women are more docile. You more security-minded. Men, our aim is peace, but it's power, and it's importance. Everyone want to be important, but in particular, men want to be important and be influential, to be a man. And black men are denied that in this society. So naturally, what do? We turn to where we feel empowered. That's our peers. Kwanzaa Kunjufu said years ago, what influenced the children? It was home, then school, and church. Now, that has been replaced with peers, social media, and television. Church ain't nowhere in the picture. Churches have failed. You're mentally dead in them churches. Very few black conscious churches. The mosque, we putting out efforts. Every city we go into, we were instructed, go door to door, starting with your neighbors. I didn't even have to hear that. I followed the example of Master Prophet Muhammad. I think it was Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, that evening in 1996. I knocked on a few doors on 604. That's the 26F, the top floor. And I walked down that hall. Nobody answered the door. I think maybe one or two people were home and didn't answer the door. And that was very discouraging until I got to the end of the hall, the right door. My beautiful sister Barbara. Geico. Sister Barbara. May Allah be pleased with her. Long live her spirit. Beautiful black woman. She was like an angel with an aura behind her. She said, "Hey, brother, glad you stopped by." And she gave me the $1 for the paper. And that was my first, door-to-door final call distribution of going right in my neighborhood. Why? Because you love yourself. What is your aim? Are you here to improve your community, your building where you at? Do you go door to door seeking improvement, cultivation? Let's get together with a cultivation center. Do you go door to door? You don't do nothing. You on social media griping. You come to the school board meeting. You barely come to the village board meeting, complaining and bickering. You have to walk the walk. Cultivation center. That's our solution. Cultivation. We kill each other because we hate each other. Hate each other because we don't know each other. We project ourselves, our own powerlessness. We take it out on somebody. That's an African proverb that says the village that casts the orphan out into the cold dark, that orphan will burn down that village to feel its warmth and get that light. Everything's connected. Our individual success means nothing if we fail any child. Leave no child behind. All you do is destroy every last one that come through that public school system. Most are ready to leave the community. That's all you talk about. You know that one of my favorite songs is Brother Teddy Pendergrass. You can't hide from yourself. Dun, 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 dun. Everywhere you go, there you are. Dun, 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 dun. That's Teddy Pendergrass, the Philadelphia sound. You can't hide from yourself. Every time you look at another black man and black woman, you're looking at God, your potential, and you see the Spirit. Connect your soul to Allah. Be one with Allah. Submit. Come on to Islam. Development, cultivation. Black nationalist organizations. Get out of these sellout organizations. These passive, all they do is ceremonies. Spending all this money in some ballroom in another town other than Hempstead. All of this money. Giving out certificates, ceremonies, you're clapping. Meanwhile, the people are in ignorance because you're the blind, misleading the blind. And you will never correct yourself, and you will never have the measures in the blueprint to implement the solutions until it's addressed, until it's brought about. This have to be brought about. You're wallowing in ignorance. Your light is weak. You're being manipulated. You're taking the village from you. Because you're weak, divided, bickering at each other. And my brother, Allah's Supreme Mathematics, mentioned before on my first live I did with the Zoom podcast, he said our people can't see their enemy because you lack vision. You're looking through life through the lens of a murderous, rapist, misogynist, Caucasian conqueror, an enslaver, and a destroyer of the black man in our culture. All he have done is destructive, destroying to us. And you act like this is just something new just now happening. Our brother Elder Baba, Dick Gregory, said this country ain't never been no good. What the hell are you talking about? Just now, acting like they're doing bad things. You're rootless. You're not connected to our ancestors. You don't have heritage, a legacy from our greatness. You don't know yourself. You're rooted in nigger Negro culture, which is the white man, nigger and Negro culture. And you got to come out of it. Some of the worst of us in school and as high, thinking our greatest development and cultivation is Greeks, to be a Greek. This is a mental handicap. The Greeks were our children. Athens was founded by a black man, a black pharaoh. The highest knowledge we got is the knowledge of self, that you are God, original people. a black man of Asia. The whole planet was called Asia. That's why when we know this, we act different. We think differently. Why do you think I'm on fast now? Fasting from food, abstaining. It's good for the heart, mind, body, and soul. Fasting. Abstaining from pleasures. Abstaining from excesses. Abstaining from lust. Abstaining. This builds up your other energy. This takes your energy unless you further utilize it for good, so that you focus up on your brain with a Christ consciousness. You can fast to the point where you don't want to even eat solid foods anymore. Excuse me. Fasting purifies. But you want things in this society, things in this life, and you're selfish. And this is your tragedy. This is your tragedy, your selfishness. Hempstead. We're very selfish. Many of us. Those of us with consciousness who humble ourselves and unify with each other, we need to team up urgently. Come join the Coalition of Concerned Citizens so we can change and address things in Hempstead to benefit us, instead of sitting back, watch this sellout board. The village board gave away land and want to give away more and give away everything. They are beholden to these same planners that's fomenting this violence in the community. Most of these people that you see doing violence with guns, most of them be manipulated. That stuff is engineered. They entrap them. They leave money here. They got people doing the SBA loans during the pandemic, getting them false statements and stuff, threatening them. You're going to go to jail for a long time. Go watch Judas and the Black Messiah. Them agents in the Black Panthers, them stooges and traitors were in the Nation of Islam. And after they murdered Malcolm, they went on to the Black Panthers to undermine them. And there's a point in the movie where, just what I'm talking about, there's an agent, he sort of looked like a Chris Brown, he's an asset. He was a black asset. And he went to the Chicago headquarters for Fred Hampton's headquarters, well, not the headquarters, but Fred Hampton's camp. He went to that building where his office was, and he acted like he was a captain that had tortured some traitor, agent. He was an FBI asset. He went into the other Black Panther office, and he, as a security man, said, look, I caught, it was a good person. Some good person volunteering their time, helping the black organization with the free food, free lunch, and that free health care. That's where health care and free health care and free lunches come from, the Black Panther program. And this brother was a good brother, volunteering. He was in the organization. The FBI agent, stooge, asset, went in there and lied to the other members and said, that dude is a rat. He's an agent. He's working with the FBI. They tortured and murdered him. They did this a lot. And then he fled that office. They sent him into Fred Hampton's office. And he said, and he told them, yeah, you know, I tortured and murdered this agent, this rat. And he was a good person. And then the FBI followed him. Wherever he went, they came behind him and followed him, said, we got a warrant for this person. He was seen here, we're looking for him. They're doing the same thing today. They're doing the same thing today. Our brother Chuck D from Public Enemy said every brother ain't a brother. They're setting you up. Most of that stuff is entrapment. Most of that stuff is mission. And a good portion of it is opportunists and self-hatred. We have to address the source of pain, the source of ignorance, and the source of this violence that we strike out at each other because we haven't been trained. We haven't been cultivated to confront our oppressor as a solid wall, saying this is your enemy. You should never let your children play with toy guns at each other. They should never take them. It's not a toy. That's a preliminary. Preliminary. That's a preliminary to a greater game of death. Them little toy guns, when they point them at each other, you should never let them do that. This is why you need manhood training. Brothers, you got to select a wife. Be dedicated. Work on her. Cultivate her. Come and get your manhood training. Be a man. Be responsible. Be the God. Strike down your enemy and oppressor. Let's come on and secure our own neighborhoods and communities. They resemble a colony. Let's make them a community. The children should be organized and trained to shoot at targets. Don't even get them toy guns. Get them an air rifle, an air pistol, and teach them to shoot at targets. Go in the yard, if you're blessed to have a yard. All of us going to lose our yards. You're going to take all your weapons too. You're going to be ruled by robots. You're going to be God, cyborg, or zombie. Choose wisely. If you don't cultivate in the best knowledge. Take the children, teach them to shoot at targets. You know, they have a saying when children, how they playing over toys, how they fight, how children fight over toys and candy. Well, when they grow up, if that keep letting them do that, fighting, when they grow up as teenagers, they're going to be fighting over girls and drugs. And jewelry, jewelry and girls. Drugs, that's a whole different lifestyle. Drugs, that's a peer pressure. It's peers teaching each other. They're on social media, fighting and bickering with each other, and it comes back into the schools. We need to separate the boys and the girls from school till they're 16 in high school. You don't have them acting with each other, intermixed like that. Every different culture in Hempstead Public Schooling should have specific cultural teaching, cultural development. Do it in the schools. The others do it. Let me get back to my sister Thurn that put that post on my wall about how we need to go against truancy. No, we need to go against curriculum and be culture in school. You have American violent ass culture, violent, hateful, racist culture. This is about the 5th time saying this. If you stand in a room with 10 people and we take a picture and later on you look at that picture, what's the first thing you're going to look for? You're going to look for yourself. How do you look in American education? It gives you an inferiority contest, tell you nothing. The first thing happened to you is when white folks let it happen for you. This is why you become the first this, the first that. The first doctor here, the first lawyer here, the first Supreme Court justice. But the first, you love it. You adore it. You go to the ballrooms, you're paying all these thousands to go there, they give you a certificate, and everybody clapping. The first ignorant ass who don't know who they are. You the first ignorant ass who don't know who you are. Because if you know who you are, you know you're the first people on the planet. Original God, Asiatic black man, maker, owner, cream, God of the universe. We are the original people. We the first people. Caucasian people come from black people. All people do. We are the first civilizers. We're the first engineers. Imhotep was such a wise black mathematician and scientist and physician. He was worshipped as God, a black man. They portray him as white. You don't know yourself. We were the first conquerors. We were the first world rulers. We were the first navigators. We had global civilization. We were the first. You're a fool because you have no root. You have no connection. Your root's been cut off. We need a militant group in Hempstead called Roots, because we're rooted in God, the Asiatic, original black man and woman, the supreme Allah, creator of the heavens and the earth. That's our solution. We got to cultivate ourselves. Kwanzaa Kunjufu, he should be one of the first ones we call into the school to help with this cultivation. Y'all have nothing. Hempstead School Board, Hempstead Village Board, y'all are lackeys. Y'all are stooges. You're just bobbleheads. You serve no purpose other than serving outside planners who aim to keep us a permanent, confused underclass. Call in Kwanzaa Kunjufu. Call in Dr. Claude Anderson. Call in the Nation of Islam. Call in black cultural developed people. Let's call in Brother Boyce Watkins, the Black Business School. Let's call in our brother Tariq Nasheed, that beautiful Black American museum. Build it in Hempstead. Let's stop letting outsiders build for themselves. Let's take control of where we are. Let's get our brother Dr. Umar, get that Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy in Hempstead. That's the spirit we need. That's the vision we need. You don't have nothing. You're just a scared slave. You're a child. You're immature. You're childlike. You have to let your master do everything for you. You don't have no vision, no scope of thinking outside of the box that he gives you. All of you. All of you like that. Nationalists, we need to take charge to make this change. Cultural Restoration Center. Restoration Cultural Center. Restoration Resource Cultural Center in Hempstead. We can do it. To restore ourselves, cultivate, refine, develop ourselves in militancy and self-love. People wouldn't want to abuse us. They wouldn't keep doing this to each other. We have ownership. We have purpose. Let me see if there's any more questions here. I think I saw some comments. Jamal Shabazz, that's right. That's peace, my brother. Jamal Shabazz, my brother. And let me see now. Brother James, Brother Keith. Yeah, that's right, Brother Keith. We got to keep Almighty God, Allah, and His Christ as the forefront. And we got to do it in righteousness. And it got to be God-centered. That's because we're righteous people. That superstition is leaving us anyway. And we can do it. Now, family, that wraps it up. That's the solution. Restoration Resource Cultural Center. Development. Let's team up. Let's go get the brothers together. Train our youth. Sisters, take your sons, bring them to us for training. We have to do this. We have to do boycotts, strikes, do property tax strikes. Don't pay your property tax. Don't pay school taxes. Force it. We have to force these people to make change like that. Our brother Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael, may Allah be pleased with him. Long live his beautiful soul and spirit. Our beautiful brother. He said, nonviolence and protests and marching only works with an oppressor or someone dominating you or control that has a conscience. You're making a plea to them. I'm marching, I'm shouting, I'm yelling. In order for that to work, you protesting. In order for that protest to work, that oppressor got to have a conscience. Oh, I'm wrong. You know, the people are right. Okay, I'm going to change. I'm going to change. This a murderer, rapist, colonizer like that, we have to force him. And how do you use force? Unity. That's the greatest force. Unity. Unify on what? Cultivation. Divine purpose. Let's cultivate ourselves for a divine purpose for the original people. Black people, original people, God of the universe. Accept your own and be yourself. That's it, family. I enjoyed this Sunday. It was beautiful, man. We out here in Long Island, we got a lot to do because a lot is taken from us. I leave you, family, as I greeted you in the ancient Arabic words of peace. Assalamu alaikum. Peace out.